This is Rosen Institute's Your Law Firm, where Lee Rosen and Ned Days cover management, marketing, finance, and new technologies for building the practice you deserve. Rosen Institute members received this episode early, as well as exclusive segments on changing your prices and an answer to a member question about Lee's lessons learned from converting the firm from hourly to fixed fees. Get access to everything you're missing at roseninstitute.com/join. Here's Lee Rosen.
It's good to be with you today from Raleigh, North Carolina. We're in our third week here in North Carolina, and this week our focus is all about catching up with friends and family. That got started with the funeral 2 weeks ago. Funerals, while they are sad events, are also some of the key family gatherings that happen to us as we get older. Big moments are the kinds of things that bring us together: births and weddings and holidays and funerals. So on the one hand, they're tough to attend, but on the other hand, they're another opportunity to see folks that we don't often get to see. I always get a little bit concerned when I'm with these folks at a funeral and we start to have a little too much fun. It doesn't always feel right to smile and laugh at a funeral, but that's what happens, hopefully at least a little bit, when we bring families together. Funerals are a big mix of emotions, but at least there is some upside. Seeing friends and family is the most important thing that we do during our time in Raleigh, and so we're soaking in our final moments before we head off to our next destination.
It's time for your tech tip. We live in an era where self-care is all the rage. Where the line between self-care and self-medication lies, I don't exactly know. My method for drowning out the pain of existence and never giving myself more than 2 minutes of silence so I don't have to be alone with my thoughts and reflect on decades of regret is to always be listening to podcasts. Some people self-medicate with food, others with drink. Based on the fact that I can't seem to go more than 30 feet without coming across a vape shop these days, I'm guessing at least some of you are making use of kratom or CBD or whatever other weird substances the kids are into these days. Not for me, though. I am all about clean living. I just rely on what my wife calls the voices in my head as I wander around the house with earbuds in like a crazy person. If I'm being completely honest, a lot of it is background static. It may as well be a white noise machine. But every once in a while I hear something useful, like, I don't know, a tech tip buried beneath the narrator's thinly disguised trauma about being an overweight kid with a bad haircut. But when those moments pop up, it is tricky to figure out exactly what to do with them. If it doesn't relate to some link in the show notes or a website that's easy to remember, how exactly do you make use of what is being discussed? I have tried occasionally taking notes of timestamps in podcasts I listened to, but I've gone back to old episodes to look those up exactly 0 times in my entire life. But there is a very interesting tool called Podcast Magic that solves this problem. The way it works is pretty cool. You take a screenshot of your phone with the podcast playing either in the app or on the lock screen and send the screenshot via email to podcastmagic@sublime.app. And in about a minute, you get an email back with a summary, transcript, and timestamp of the roughly 90-second segment of the podcast at the moment you screenshotted it. It also includes a link with the clip and a transcript so that you can easily share it with others. To try it out, there is no app or login required. Just screenshot your device, email it to podcastmagic@sublime.app, and wait for the reply. You can learn a little more about the service at podcastmagic.app. Officially, they say you should be using the Apple Podcasts app or Spotify for this to work properly, but it worked just fine when I tried it with Castro, and I am guessing that any podcast app that displays the podcast's name, episode name, and elapsed time will probably work just fine too. Obviously, this is only going to work for podcasts in public directories, so unfortunately you can't use it on private podcasts or content that you have sideloaded if your podcast player supports that. Now, if you decide you want to keep using this, there is a one-time $20 fee that lets you do this as often as you like from the same email address. This tool is provided by Sublime.app, which is a kind of social bookmarking pinboard service worth checking out if you are into that kind of thing, and it will of course sync up your saved podcast podcast clips if you create a Sublime account with the same email address. But you certainly don't have to bother with that portion if you don't want to. The Podcast Magic service itself is pretty neat. It does one thing, but it solves that problem really well and doesn't require messing around with extra apps or accounts if you don't want to bother. I think this is a really interesting example of how firms need to start thinking about ways to take advantage of the input problems that AI tools let us solve. One of the areas where multimodal AI platforms have made monumental leaps over existing software is in their ability to handle messy input or unstructured data. Maybe you have a printed form that staff members still fill out by hand for some reason. Maybe you routinely have meetings or calls where something that needs to be acted on is sketched out on a whiteboard. Maybe the quickest and easiest way to grab the information needed to fill out a form or kick off a workflow is to take a screenshot of a dashboard or portal that you access regularly. Up until very recently, one of the biggest time sinks of any software process was cleaning up that input, copying data from a handwritten document or an image or an audio file into a form in some piece of software, reformatting records or databases so that they matched the format of the system into which you were entering them or copying them. Maybe it was listening through a recording or searching through a transcript to find a few pieces of information that needed to be typed in manually into some kind of software so that the rest of the process had the data in the correct format and could move forward. That kind of thing can now be handled without wasting any manpower and risking error on copying from one place to another. That's what Podcast Magic is doing under the hood. It is passing off your screenshot to an AI tool like ChatGPT or Gemini and asking it to extract the show name, episode name, and timestamps. Once it does that, the rest is fairly straightforward as far as the programming is concerned. It uses the details to access normal APIs to look up the correct episode, access the transcript and the audio file, snip the right portion, and package it up into an email for you. Instead of making you pull up a form where you specify all of those things, or paste in the URL of the show, or manually tell it the timestamp, it's grabbing all of that information from a screenshot, making the user experience much smoother and slightly magical compared to what we are used to. What are the processes in your practice that can take advantage of this to make life easier for your clients and your team? What details can you ask an AI workflow builder to pull out of an intake call or client meeting and input directly into your practice management system? What documents or emails are you receiving regularly with details that someone is having to manually copy to some other piece of software? What hoops are you making clients jump through to format or label or categorize or name documents and data that could be handled automatically? When you think about the headaches that come along with practice management platforms and getting different pieces of software to play nicely together and getting data from hard copies into some kind of tool or database, a lot of that boils down to the hassle of reformatting messy data. What kind of improvements can you be making if that roadblock is removed? I'm Ned Days, and that's your tech tip.
And now for your moment of concise advice. I had lunch yesterday with someone that I've known for a little while, not someone I'm particularly close to. And it was a long lunch, 2 hours, long enough for bread and soup and a main course and dessert and a coffee refill. And you know what I didn't get at that lunch? I didn't get a single question, not one. No curiosity, no how are you, no what's going on with you, no tell me more about your life. Just a steady stream of her words, her stories, her stuff. By the end of the lunch, I did not feel any closer to this person. In fact, I felt invisible. And if you make someone feel invisible, well then, in life and in business, it's game over. Here's the truth. No question marks means no connection, no trust, no liking, no feeling, no relationship. No question marks means disaster. It doesn't matter if you're trying to win business or win friends or win at life. If you can't be curious, you can't win. And here's the wild part. Curiosity, it isn't hard. It's not advanced training. It's not a hidden skill. It's as simple as this. Just ask a question. And after you ask the first question, ask another one. That's it. Think of it as a game. Make it an exercise. See if you can follow every single answer with another question. Keep going to test yourself. It'll feel awkward at first, but before you know it, it's fun. And if the person across from you is also good at this, then it gets really interesting. They'll start ending their answers with questions too. They'll want to play because they're curious, they're engaged, and they also know that you've got important and interesting things to share. I've seen it happen. I once walked into a meeting where the other person just kept asking me about me, my work, my family, my travels. I left feeling energized, like I'd made a new best friend. And guess what? That friendly chat with that one person, it turned into one of the biggest referrals that I ever made in my career. That's the kind of payoff that curiosity delivers, and that's the tip of the iceberg. But let me warn you about this game that you play, this curiosity. Don't fake it. People can smell scripted questions a mile away. Real curiosity is actually about wanting to know. Look across the table, look at that person and ask, what matters to this person? What don't I know yet? And then dig in, go for it. Asking questions is essential. It's how trust is built. It's how relationships are built. It's how you win. Make everyone you talk to, everyone you interact with, everybody you have lunch with, make them feel interesting and important no matter who they are. They'll feel interesting and important if you are interested in what it is that they have to say, if you are curious. If that is your plan to make them feel interesting and important, then you're going to win clients and win friends, and you're going to win respect. So be curious, ask questions, make people feel interesting and important, and you're going to win at life. That's your moment of concise advice. Wrapping up from Raleigh, thanks for spending a few minutes with me and Ned today. We hope you have a great weekend and an even better week next week. Keep plugging away, moving forward, and getting things done. You're on the right track. You'll get there, I promise. We're all in this together, and together we build better practices through better marketing, better management, and better technology. Until next time, I'm Lee Rosen.
Thanks for listening to Your Law Firm. Subscribe to the Friday File at roseninstitute.com and join thousands of lawyers focused on working on, instead of in their practices. You'll find safe, successful, actionable approaches for transforming your firm. Sign up for free at roseninstitute.com.